Joining me today are Hakon and Reuben from the Norwegian band On the Edge of Leaving. Hakon and Reuben reached out to me several weeks ago, sharing their EP with me titled Respite. And after hearing the first song on the record, 1992, I was hooked. And I had to have these guys on the show. What drew me to these guys were many things, but one in particular was the fact that they were previously a black metal band called, is it Draug, guys? Did I get that right?
It's a Draug.
Draug. Okay. All right.
Draug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years since I was in Oslo, so I'm working on my Norwegian accent a little bit. But in the summer of 2023, they locked themselves in a studio in Drammen, and that's in Norway, and recorded Respite as a new band called On the Edge of Leaving. And they had previously recorded an album before this as well, which I want to talk about today. And to say that this music would be a complete left turn from their kind of metal past would be a drastic understatement. But their music really spoke to me, and it's an acoustic foundation which relaxed me a lot. But it also made me want to listen more to the lyrics and ask what the meaning behind all of it is. And so on today's episode, we're going to find this out. So guys, thank you so much for joining me all the way from Norway on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Happy to join.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
So
I love your excitement for the tunes.
Oh,
yeah.
Just get ready, man. Just get ready. Before we dive in, let's get to why I want the listeners out there to really hear you guys. It's because you guys have got a chemistry and a sound to you that's really, I think, drawing. It draws me in. The music scene in Norway is vibrant, and I don't feel like here in America we hear enough out of the music scene of Scandinavia like we should. And Hakon and Reuben, you guys met about 10 years ago. Is that right?
That's
basically, yeah.
Basically our anniversary this year.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I want to make sure I have my facts straight. You formed On the Edge of Leaving about 6 years ago?
Probably a little bit before. I think the starting point of this project, this duo, this band that it became, it started slowly. I think the release of the Bits and Pieces release is probably like the year before. So it must have been 8 years ago then, 16, right?
Yeah, it was about a year before my daughter was born, which now that has to be 18, 17 then.
Slowly, like us playing in a band, you hang out, and Ruben and I have found out that we had similar interest in music that was maybe a little bit on the side of the black metal style music. Just started playing, and eventually I helped Ruben. He asked me to help him record the songs, and I ended up having more of my fingers on it than was maybe intended. And we found out it worked.
Yeah, it's this natural sort of synergy that happens. I think we were so used to being in this other band together that it was impossible for us to work separately. So when we started doing this, every idea he had made so much sense to me, and we spoke the same language. I believe some of the songs on the Bits and Pieces album I wrote when I was a teen.
Wow.
Which is a very long time ago. Yeah. And I kept them for so many years. And I always had this sort of imagination of putting it out as an acoustic thing. It was highly inspired by our friend Petter Karlsen at the time, who was a fellow Norwegian, really great musician. And I also fell in love around that time when I was 16, 17 with a band, or it's a solo project from Dallas Green, from Alexis on Fire. I believe they're Canadian sort of post-hardcore band. But he did like this 180, and he just recorded his own ideas from being a vocalist in such a more aggressive style, and he just recorded his ideas to a purely acoustic, folky vibe. So I sat on that idea for so many years, and we got to this point with Draug where we recorded so much ourselves that I just had to ask Hakon, you need to help me get this idea to life, right?
Yeah.
And when we started, we just couldn't stop. It just worked so well. It's that synergy that comes from playing so much together.
And how did you guys come up with the name On the Edge of Leaving?
Oh, that's actually quite funny. So we started with the music, and then we need a name. We need something we need a brand. We need something. You need a band name, project name. And at the time, we had a lot of ideas, but one that I can't remember who wrote it down, but someone wrote it down on a list at some point, and it just kept popping up. I remember very clearly that I remember seeing it. Oh, that's cool. And I think it was based on the fact that you were, at the time, you had broken up with your girlfriend.
That's usually what influences a lot of songwriting, right?
But you were still living together.
Yeah.
For at least a month or two.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I can't remember, but and that kind of being on the edge of leaving, that kind of threshold of you're leaving something, but not yet, or you've left it, but it's still there, just before the transitioning of leaving something behind. And you can put so many meanings to the on the edge of leaving in my mind. So it's I always really like that name, even though it's a bit long. It's not the most catchy name, but I don't mind.
Logo very well.
Logo is a difficult thing. We still don't have one, but
it leaves a lot for interpretation, I think, and that's what intrigues me, and I think a lot of other listeners as well. When I want to know, a lot of musicians and artists, they'll say, well, it's really up for your interpretation. We don't want to tell you what our music is about or what our name is about, but I really enjoy understanding the impetus behind a name or a song or whatever, because it helps me to really feel more what that person was feeling when they wrote it. I know for me, one of the funniest things my brother ever said to me when at my wedding, this was back in 2006, he said, we haven't heard any new music from Greg in a long time, because he said, I'm happy right now. So a lot of my songs were written off of challenges that I had with women or transitional phases between school or another stage of my life. And so I can definitely align with you guys in terms of how that can affect you and be something really huge in your life. So you guys are a trio, right? So Reuben, you sing and play guitar and bass, and Hakon, you also sing and play guitar and bass. And you've got a drummer, Simon. Is he still a part of the band?
Yes. Yeah, he recently joined us. We reached out to him because I guess it's the same kind of thing. When we worked on Respite, we always expand on ideas. And we got to this point where it was we just had to try this band setting for the songs, because we're very into post-rock, post-metal vibes. Heard this idea in different formats, and we started jamming together in a practice room, and we just realized we just need a drummer. This project has so many ways it can go.
Right. And that's always On the Edge of Leaving has always been about, so our previous band was very much in a box. It was set. Right. You try to push the limits a bit, but it was a little bit more restricted with what you could do with it. And this project is always going to be wherever we feel like we want to go. We start out as acoustic. Right now, we're working more into the band thing, more electrical guitars, and not heavy necessarily, but more punchy, it's a band. Lots of reverb, more heavy gain guitars, a little bit more of that style. For the future, who knows? Yeah. We have no idea where we're going to go. We have some ideas, some interest in what we want to do, but there's no, this is what we are, we need to stay there.
Right.
Yeah. And bringing on Simon who also played drums in Draug. So we're basically Draug minus one. The other guitarist in Draug. It just made sense. We knew each other. It was and he showed an interest in picking up the drums again, because we've had a few years where we weren't as active with music, all of us. And when we started playing, it just felt right. Being back in a rehearsal space, having drums and loud guitars, it just felt awesome after a few years sitting in bedrooms with acoustic guitars.
And I think the last time we spoke in March, you guys were auditioning bass players. Is that that right? How's that search going? Because I just want to let you know, I could get on a flight and just come right over there. So how's the search going?
It's a little bit up in the air right now. Yeah. It's basically just one guy that we've talked to, and availability, too many bands. Drummers and bass players always have 5 bands at minimum, and they have to delegate time. So
it's funny. I actually, while packing for our move, I found this old box from when we were active as Draug, and I always keep memorabilia, posters, flyers we were on, cassette tapes we received, and I found the flyer from when we played Drammen the first time, with Skrumt as a headliner band, and that's what's the band is or was the band we've tried out with a bass player from that band. He's a brilliant bass player. So it's got quite a lot of memories and connections, and being in a band is so much more than just music. It's so much friendship and family, and you get so closely connected.
Chemistry,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so tell me again, what motivated you guys years ago to start a black metal band?
Oh.
What was it about that genre?
Do you want to go first?
I remember very clearly choosing to respond to the message from Draug asking about someone to play guitar with them, like a ad or whatever. I've always liked metal, and black metal has always, there's something about the atmosphere that I always liked, but I've always gravitated more towards the progressive metal, progressive rock. So my previous band before that was a lot more progressive, open in that sense. But I remember seeing the ad and listening to the demo that they released and everything, and I was like, I'm gonna try. I'm not very good at playing that type of music. I hadn't really played a whole lot, like a lot of tremolo, fast picking, and I've never been a person that plays fast. Not that we were the most. Drag was never the most technical band, but still at the time I was like, I don't know, I'll try, and it felt right. It felt right, and I love playing that type of music, and it's just something about the atmosphere, the you can expand on chords, and you can just get that kind of the feeling of blast beats, the drummer blasting the drums behind you, and you're tremolo picking, and I love it.
Now,
it's something special. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the name of the genre, because when I first heard that adjective, I have to admit, I, and probably many of my listeners, are somewhat naive. When I heard black metal band, I thought it was a description of a metal band with a bunch of black guys in it. But that's obviously not the case. So,
which does exactly that. It's a common joke in the genre, though. There's a recording of a black metal band searching for in the States, searching for a vocalist, and this African-American guy, he calls them up and he's, but it's a black metal band. Sort of trying to convince them he's the right guy for the job. And it makes sense. Now, this story-wise, the short and sweet of black metal is from this Venom album, which was released in the 80s.
Yeah,
and they
familiar
had
with
this,
Venom?
Or before, I can't remember actually.
I don't know if it was a song or the album was called Black Metal, which sort of inspired and started this movement for many during the early 90s, sort of transition into the 90s. And it's such a huge cultural thing in Norway, I believe.
It's niche. It's a small part. A lot of people in other countries internationally think that black metal is a big thing in Norway, that everyone listens to it in Norway, and it's a common thing in Norway, but it's not really. It's a group, it's a part of, it's a scene just like in any other genre.
And how does it different you guys from, say, like death metal? That's a term that I've heard a little bit more frequently.
You can imagine, I always picture like death metal, it's more like ogres.
Okay.
It's, big and
like
crunchy,
like Gwar or something.
Yeah. They're just big, chunky sounds and steady rumbling beats. While black metal, it just encompasses more of these soundscapes, more like a ghoulish kind of vibe. So
Cool.
Slow, vibey, huge spheres. I always compare it to punk rock in that sense. It doesn't matter how good you are at playing. It's about creating this vibe and this thing, which it doesn't matter who you are, or, well, gatekeeping is a huge thing within this scene, but it's about expressing yourself in this crazy soundscape. It's really big.
Now, I think I did mention this to you guys. I visited Norway before. It was a couple minutes ago. It was 29 years ago, but I'm sure things have changed a lot. But I'm interested to ask, what were your lives like growing up?
Mine is less complex than his.
Okay.
He'll choose how much he wants to go into it, but mine is pretty normal, like pretty boring, I'd say. Yeah. Family, cabin trips, boat, out in a boat. I don't know. I have a pretty normal upbringing, I'd say. nothing too crazy in any direction.
Yeah, you've had your fill with things.
Yeah, you meet a lot of, obviously, when it comes to family and upbringing, it's been good. But when it comes to being a person that is maybe not aligning with what's the most popular, or someone that's having their own interests, speaking up for themselves maybe a little bit more and not just following along, there's been definitely been difficulties.
Sure.
And that definitely is a part of our songs and our lyrics. And none of us have had or have an easy life by any means.
Right.
But when it comes to the actual upbringing and my bubble growing up, it was very safe and good.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what maybe brought you guys together as well, right? Reuben, how about you?
Like, what was like? You kind of find your peers, or you vibe with people for a specific reason. But I guess, as Hakon said, Norway, it's a massive country, right? We're far stretched. I'm from the north, Norway, which is very different, both culturally, and the environment's completely different. We're this wide stretched open barren land with a lot less people. Biggest city in where I'm from is, when I grew up, we were around 16,000 people. And I guess you could fit almost all of southern and eastern Slang, we call it. A lot of south of Norway could fit inside Finnmark, where I'm from. It's like massive. But we're still, Norwegians are Norwegians. We're very warming people once you get to know them. But it takes a while, right? So we're set in our ways. Things have to be the specific way. And Norwegians are great people, but we're firm with how society should be and what you should do. We have a lot of unwritten rules in Norway of how to act and what to like. And being long-haired, you lose from the get-go, right? I was actually prepared for this question because it's quite related to a lot of our music, and especially the first EP. So I was prepared for this question, how much to say. But growing up was right now it feels far away, but it was a rough time. I wouldn't say that in many ways it has shaped me, but it could be a lot worse than it is, right?
You've come through on the other side of it, on the positive, I'd say. Like on the positive side, it could have ended very differently.
Yeah.
I think once again, you have to choose how much you want to say, but I feel like you've proven that you can power through things and not just become a copy of where you came from.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You can make a change in your life, even though maybe it starts a bit rough. You know what I mean?
The short and sweet of it is, when I grew up, it's a small town, right? And it's not a lot of families there, and everyone knows everyone kind of city, right?
Sure.
So I grew up, there were a lot of drugs, guns, domestic abuse, a lot of shitty things for a child to experience. I started off quite normally as standard Norwegian upbringing, fishing on a boat, going to the cabin, driving snowmobiles, wonderful package that Norway has to offer, living outdoors. But it took a hill for the worse when I got older and I got into ungdomsskolen, high school, kind of. Yeah, so it was a lot of violence. Actually, my house got swatted once.
Really?
I had one of the biggest police operations in the entirety of Finnmark's history in my living room in the basement, where they tried to arrest my stepfather. He was, what do you call them in English? He beat up people for money. Oh. Yeah, collector.
Yeah, there's
Torpedo.
a word. Yeah, there's a word we use, but I don't know if it has anything to do with gambling, but bookie is a word we use in the United States.
Yeah.
He was a tough dude then. He was a tough guy.
210, built this door. He was blind as a mole, full of amphetamines, and he was a crazy guy. Not much happened to me directly though, which is why I'm so okay.
Right? Yeah, maybe that's what made you power through it. Yeah.
I always stood up for myself, and I take pride in that. I got through it all with little to no harm.
And being able to not just get stuck in it, and maybe being able to get away from it by your own choice, basically saying, I don't want any part in this, and pulling away, even though it's family or people you care about, people you love. Still being able to see that this is not good for me. I'm going to get myself away from this influence or whatever.
Right.
It's actually what kind of saved me to bring it back to the music was this one Christmas Eve. My cousin and my best friends came back from Oslo. They all went studying, but I didn't have a support system to do that, travel or study or do much of what I wanted. That Christmas, Øystein, which is the last person from Draug, he came back home to Alta. We grew up together and we knew each other well. And he was like, dude, just move.
Just go.
Just go. You can come with me and we'll play black metal together.
That must have been so comforting, Reuben.
Yeah,
like, that must have been just, you had a brother in a sense.
Yeah.
Like you had, and you had the music. That was literally going to be my next question. Did you look at music growing up? Because I certainly did, but did you look at music growing up as like an escape? This is for me. I'm gonna try to get out of this reality for a little while, and I'm gonna go over here.
Definitely. Most of my biggest sort of greatest hits, worst and best memories are connected to music.
Sure.
In most senses. Around that time, my dad also, he was a great musician. He played music his entire life. I didn't know him until I was like 18 though. But I started playing music. I started a band in Alta, which played more kind of a Metallica, Dream Theater-esque stuff with great people.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to do more in the sense of music. So that night when Øystein came and he said, just move, just take this step and you're gonna be fine. I changed Alta, and this one box I was born into with the Draug box, which in some sense is wonderful and some might say it's sad. It's like a chain. You put all your eggs in this black metal basket with some random dudes from
riding the blast beats.
Changed that and play blast beats. And I never played bass before, and he was just like, you just play bass and we'll find a guitarist. We have this great drummer, and it was a wonderful moment, really. But yeah, music definitely. I was very involved. I started out with black metal, folk metal, this typical Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish metal bands.
Okay.
But I transitioned a lot into these more alternative, I guess you could call it the MySpace scene of like alternative rock, the post-hardcore, the emo scene from the MySpace era, which influences me, and I still listen to a lot of it today.
I mean, I still think a lot of our music is influenced by that type of music, like the alt rock, emo scene, whatever you want to call it. And that's an influence that I don't have at all. But that's what we all have our different influences.
Yeah.
But you really bring that, and then I bring my influences, and it creates something new.
For better or worse, we've affected each other.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of this project and working with Hakon in general. What I really love is that you have so many people just trying to gatekeep music. It has to be like this way or that way. But no matter what kind of music I listen to and what Hakon listens to, I always find interests in some way. We hear the same things that we connect with through music, and that working with someone so closely, it's a necessity to survive as people or friends.
Now, did you guys have older brothers or sisters that influenced your musical taste at all, or were you on your own? No. Okay.
I had a cousin. He was a few years older than me, and he was probably my biggest influence. Apart from my dad, he was my biggest influence. So my dad influenced me with the love for music. There was always music on, especially if my mom wasn't at home. There was always music on. Everything from Enya to techno to Frank Zappa, which is his biggest. Frank Zappa is my dad's biggest, like most favorite artist, and I've also inherited that. But
awesome.
Like the variety of music that my dad had on at home really I think that's a big part of what made me so open to music. But I'm very specific in what I like and I don't like. So it's I'm not the one that can enjoy everything, but I'm open to a lot. But then my cousin came in and he was like, oh, check out this album, Metallica or Tool, or I remember my cousin finding Amon Amarth, which is a Swedish melodic Viking death metal band. And I was like, wow, this is the most heavy thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's just, you need those kind of input in your life, I think. But in general, apart from that, it's
Explain to us, guys, the feeling you get, the natural high you get from that drug that is playing live? Like when you play a song you wrote for people and they clap or they cheer or they scream in joy, what's that feeling like?
I don't think I can explain it.
It's very, I was actually thinking about that in the car because it's this weird sense. I've always, music to me is hard to explain because why am I writing music? I do it for my own sake, but I also use a lot of time to promote it to others, to show them what I made. So in that sense, it's both the selfish thing and a non-selfish thing. You want people to hear it, you always tell yourself you do it for yourself. Like it's a release for me to write music. I don't know. I get this. It's lovely to see people connect with you. That's my high when I'm playing. That you can tell that people are catching what you're trying to convey. If it's rhythmically or if it's melodically, you can see that people are moved. They feel what you're trying to give across the table, right?
You need to split up music in different phases as well. Like it's in the beginning, it's more about the creative process.
Sure.
The creative process is something that I really enjoy. I wish I could just not have to worry about promoting any music and just focus on the actual music.
Right.
Modern band, you can't. Not that we're great at promoting, but you have to still. But the creative process gives me a really big high. When you have that good idea, you spend the whole night or the whole day just working out an idea, and then later you get I feel like we get the same feeling again when you start to play it within a band setting, because a lot of the time when we write a demo in a studio, recorded demo, and then we bring it to the band and play it, at least that's how we do it now with On the Edge of Living, and you get a little bit of a high then too, and then the last high is actually get to playing it live. And when you're up on that stage, it's very difficult. You're sad when you have to go down from the stage. When it's over, you're really nervous before, and in the beginning you're like, oh. But once you're on that stage and you're playing, it's a really good feeling.
I really like the way you're putting it there, because that might be, as you said, it's like bringing several hundred people into your creative process. It's like that connection you get when we're recording together and we're like doing these sections, and he puts on this awesome melodic guitar on top of what I've already done, and this creativity, and you share that creative feeling with a lot of people. That was a good way to explain it. Yeah, I like that.
Now, you guys mentioned, you talked a little bit about some of your darker days personally. Have you had any struggles music wise as musicians that have made you almost give up? Like, did it ever get to that?
All the time.
All the time. We wouldn't be where we are. You guys wouldn't be where you are if you didn't have those moments.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them, because I have a lot of, what's the word? I think my expectations are pretty high, especially to myself. And if I'm not getting the output or getting the result that I'm looking for, I'm like, I might as well just give up. I've multiple times thought, I'm just going to play guitar now. I'm done singing because I don't feel like it, or I feel like a lot of insecurities for sure with everything. But in the end, even if you have those moments of like self-doubt or just feeling like everything you do, the output isn't there, you always come back. Yeah. You can give it some time, step away from it.
Right.
In fact, when Draug stopped being active, Reuben got a kid. There were a few years then where Reuben and I barely saw each other, no music being made. I basically said, I needed a break, because at that point I played, like, done music things, if not every day, every week, at least for, 15 years, 10 to 15 years. I was like, I need a break. So I was like, I'm not done playing guitar. I'm not going to sell all my stuff or anything, but I'm going to just only play guitar when I really feel like it.
Like you said, Hakon, it can be exhausting, especially when for me, full transparency, I really enjoy the creative process of the podcast, but the marketing part, it can be tiring. So sometimes you just want to sit down and create. And I think a lot of people who are musically gifted, maybe they feel a little uncomfortable talking high of themselves. Oh, you got to check out my music. I'm really good. And maybe that's right. I
just want to play music and release it or play it for people. Right. And I don't need any fluff. I don't need to, but I don't know. It's weird. you can't, if you release music and you don't try at least to talk about it, no, it's why release it?
It's
Then
gonna
you might as well
disappear
create it
into
for
the
yourself
void.
only.
Yeah. It's a kind of, I guess that's why we're in this scene. We played black metal bands, we played heavy metal bands, prog metal. They're all genres which we met so many talented people.
I'm sure.
There are some, just an example, like from Drammen, there's a band called Flesh Meadow, and they have some of the greatest musicians I have ever seen in my life, including the bigger bands I've seen on stage, like really big bands. They're so incredibly talented, and they're never going to be the guys who stand up and say, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, check out my music. These genres are all trying to let the music speak for itself, but the massive amount of music coming out today, you need marketing. You need to try to push it on people and say, take a listen. I know your ears are fully saturated with a million tunes right now, but just listen to this.
That's exactly why we're here. That's exactly why we're here. And that's why I wanted to do this. And this is really the genesis of why I wanted to create this whole thing. So you guys, you alluded to this a little bit earlier in our conversation, that you were a metal band for many years. And then you talked about just taking a little bit of a break, which I think we've all done. But what made you decide to just then completely, and I think, again, you talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but what made you guys decide to really just change your musical direction? Because it really is a change.
I guess the music was always there for me, and in many ways for you as well.
Yeah.
We played acoustic guitars. We used to jam together on acoustic guitars, and we came to this point where we met each other, and we tried this big black metal band thing. We tried getting this Eastern European tour with the band, which horribly failed. We got scammed for a lot of money.
Oh no.
We tried this big thing, and we're tired of the whole ordeal. So we just decided there and then to let's just do it ourselves. Let's just make music. We have music that we like. These are great ideas. We can work together and be creative together, and let's just do our thing on our terms and just
a different outlet.
Yeah.
Different type of, it's a completely different way to think about music when you play acoustically, but also just as the songs that we started out with, the bits and pieces, they were written for acoustic guitar. But when that album or EP, whatever it is, released, both Reuben and I was like, yeah, we want to make band music now. And we started doing that. So throughout those years where we had a break from both, like Draug was basically on hiatus and we got busy, we met here and there a few days. I think it was like, you could probably count on your fingers how many times throughout the year we met to work on it. But demos ended up being a thing. We had demos laying around, and they were always intended to be, you know what, let's not think about if we can play it or not. Let's just create songs, record songs.
Layers
and layers. We love layers, so we end up having 5 different guitar parts.
Always makes it sound full.
Yeah, and all your ideas can come out and shine. You don't need to think about that you only have 2 hands.
Yeah.
Which is always a problem. Not enough hands. Still is. And suddenly, after a few years of just working slowly on it, I guess, we got asked by someone Reuben knew to play a concert. That was last summer. It was this kind of small private festival, I don't know, a weekend of
very
music.
hush, very
Nothing. I asked Reuben if we wanted to play a concert, and we had never played any of our songs live at that point with On the Edge of Leaving. And we were like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's try it.
First, we need to write more songs and finish off our songs, because we had a lot of demos, but not a lot of it was finished. And all of it was written with drums, 5 layers of guitars, bass, synth.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, what do we do now? So basically, I think it was a year ago. So I guess from March probably to June, we spent all our available time that we had to rearrange the songs. So obviously rehearse the songs that we released on bits and pieces, but also rearrange the new songs and actually finish up those songs. And that process is what started us being active again. I think without that, I'm not sure we would have been as active as we are now. It pulled us back into the world of music and just showed us how much fun it is again. Yeah,
it revived us.
it did. It did.
This is a perfect segue into the music now. So Respite, as we've been talking now for the last 30 or so minutes, it's your new EP, which has 5 songs on it. And you mentioned your first album, Bits and Pieces, was released in 2017, which I thought, after listening to both of them, had somewhat of a similar, the word I like to use is melancholic vibe, to use the term I think that I ended up finding also written in your press kit, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
But to give the listeners an idea, Hakon and Reuben's band consists mostly of, like they were saying, dueling acoustic guitars, but excellent harmonized vocals. You guys, you make me feel like I'm floating in the clouds when I listen to your music. And that might sound a little cliche, but that's just what I felt like. And now your first album, and I think you touched upon this already, Bits and Pieces, was 2017. What happens between 2017 and 2024? Why the long pause? Was that when you took your break, or was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Draug stopped being active in, I think we had our last concert in 19.
Yeah.
And it didn't a lot of, it had already slowed down before that.
Yeah. We finished the first album.
Yeah.
And we played some gigs. We played across Norway from south to north.
Yeah.
And it's one day just, all right, we were stopped.
Yeah. And during that time, I think On the Edge of Leaving didn't really get a whole lot of focus. It came back again when Draug stopped playing. But yeah, so it was easier with Bits and Pieces because Reuben had already had this song since he was 16, or between he was 16 and that point. A lot of old songs that he'd been playing in different shapes and forms and never really recorded or done something proper with them, basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of material was ready. We just needed to rearrange it and maybe add some melodies and work on our vocals and all of that. With this new one, with Respite, it was a little bit more work, I'd say, because there were songs that was written since basically Bits and Pieces was released until 2024. There were songs there. We had a lot of ideas, so we had a lot of material to work off of, but nothing finished. So it was a lot more work to get it done and actually make it a product.
Yes. We weren't really planning on ending up in a situation where those songs actually became a release, really.
No.
So that kind of halts the process.
Expand on that.
Yeah. It was a lot. I got a child, I got married, I got divorced, I got everything in between those. It was a lifetime basically between the first release and the second one. I guess we didn't, until we got that concert offer and we were like, oh, yeah, we actually really want to do this. It wasn't an intended release for that.
No, and we actually recorded, the Respite was recorded in this room,
yeah,
right here, with this mic.
Yeah, with that
Very
guitar
cool.
behind us.
With that guitar, basically within a week.
Yeah.
Not because that was the intent, but because we recorded it as a way to have something to bring to this festival.
Right.
We wanted to bring something to the people that was there. So we figured we rehearsed it. Why not just record it exactly as we play it? So that Respite only has 2 guitars and 2 vocals at all times. We didn't allow ourselves to. We added bass, but still.
Yeah, we did that later.
Yeah,
but
the intent was that it's us as we play live.
Yeah,
but obviously recorded in.
And it's fun because when I listen to it, I can hear all the mistakes and the quirks.
I know, isn't that the worst when it's your own stuff? You can go back. And, but
it's not.
The good news is
no,
most of the time your listeners they have no idea. But it's just it's your I do that as well when I go back and listen to anything. I'm like, oh, that one thing right there, but half the time nobody even knows what I'm talking about.
No, you're so into it. You do everything. Yeah,
right.
So we released it and burnt CDs, made our own DIY covers, brought it to the festival and gave it away for free, basically. And afterwards we were like, maybe we should we have this thing. It actually sounds pretty good. Let's release it.
Yeah,
that was
short and sweet.
Kind of. It was never the plan we're going to record these songs. It just happened. But I think that's part of the beauty in a release like that, especially when it's acoustic. But it doesn't need a whole lot of production value. It's a bit easier to mix. Our friend Liam Nutt, who also mixed the previous release, Bits and Pieces, he helped us again, and he made it sound really good.
Yeah.
I'm
We're
also
lucky to have good
recommending.
friends.
That's huge, right? Having your network, especially people that know how to maybe add to your music or make recommendations. And I'm sure, like you guys, like me, I'm sure you consider your music your children in many ways and your babies, right? So people who come from the outside, they have to tread lightly when they give you recommendations. But I think that's a testament to you guys too, that you could bring some people in that you trust and say, hey, let me know what you think. Okay.
Yeah.
Take 50% of their recommendations. You're like, you know what? No, I actually really like the way it sounds right now. But other times, I never even thought about that. Thank you for saying that. And I'm telling all my listeners to check out Bits and Pieces. I think the music is multi-generational and even it goes across different cultures as well, different age groups. But going back to Respite, the new EP, which was released on the 29th of February, just this year, let's get right into it. The record's opener, I've been waiting for so long to talk to you guys about this. 1992. I love this song, you guys.
Spending days on my own, no one at home except the voice in my head. Smoke-filled air in my lungs, a spectrum of fun, second-hand cocktails of death. Spending days in the sun, no one at home except my squarest of friends. Breathing in all the sun, the taste of the smell, I'm okay on my own. Slow down, I'm still in 92. Where are you? 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 Where are you?
You hooked me. Now, I have to ask, no one at home except the voice in my head, smoke-filled air in my lungs, a spectrum of fun, secondhand cocktails of death. Talk to me about that. What's the motivation behind that?
I actually really love that. Coming from the black metal scene, getting to talk about lyrics is a good change of pace.
We spent a lot of time on lyrics, even in Draug. Lyrics have been important to us.
Yeah. So I love this question so much. I always, when I write lyrics, it's fast. I always get these pictures in my head of a situation or an event or a memory. And this whole section of the song, which you mentioned, it's a memory I have, but I don't. In many ways, I was born in 1992, but I sort of...
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, keep going, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I always look back to Finnmark is a cold and harsh place, but we have some great summer days. And I always picture like the sun is shining through the trees, lots of insects flying around, and back then you had these lawn chairs and you're just lying spread out in the lawn chair and everyone was smoking everywhere. How we survived that, like trapped in a car ride for 8 hours with cigarette smoke and these cocktails of death that I mentioned. It's a great memory, but there's always some sort of square to connect such a wonderful memory to such an awful thing like cigarettes.
There's a dark side of the moon, let's say.
Yeah.
The back side of it is...
But it's still, I can remember the smells. I can remember the feeling.
I know what you mean.
like long summer days that only kids can have.
I guess it's a little bit like, it's not definitely nostalgia.
Yeah.
The bliss of nostalgia. I feel that's something that I always felt. Even the sound of the song for me has always been this kind of feeling of way back when.
Right.
And I feel like the lyrics to me give a little bit of a, like, as it is for nostalgia, you remember a lot of the good things, but the negative things, there you forget them. You don't really see them anymore as the years go by.
Yeah.
And I feel like that song is very much that.
Yeah. And I just love this idea of being, I remember riding my bike and we only had house phones, right, attached to the wall.
Yeah.
So you couldn't call your friends to check if they were home. I was one of those kids who never had the money to travel or go anywhere. So I was most often at home in my backyard or in the woods or riding my bike around, checking if people were home. So there's no one at home, literally. I'm just here with riding my bike around. We didn't even have like iPods or headsets. I think many years later when I received my first like Walkman and I could play cassettes and CDs, right. But the Walkman was so big it wouldn't fit in my pocket. So I just rode around. You had to carry it, right? Yeah.
I had my own Walkman CD player in a bag that was made for it, so I could walk around with the CDs, listening to music, skipping.
Yeah, I remember it being, in many ways, it was so lonely, right? Just riding your bike around. The only thing I hummed tunes, I listened to my own thoughts, and the sound of gravel under your tires and just riding around with nothing but yourself. Back when I was a kid, it was like this hopeless loneliness and like, when are people coming home? I just want to play with some kids. Or that sounds horrible to say.
No, I'm right there. I'm right there with you, Reuben. And if I may, you struck a chord with me because 92 for me was a big year. So music was always, I had a younger brother, but he looked to me for musical tastes. And I had friends who had older brothers and sisters, but a lot of times when I was alone, my music train was the radio, or back when I was a kid, MTV was a really big thing. And a lot of the music that I was subjected to came from that. It wasn't until really, and I can remember, it wasn't until 1992, and I was just coming into my teenage years. I was a couple years into teenage, but I was starting to lose my innocence a little bit. And I was starting to look out there and say, man, there's some really messed up people out there, and life isn't necessarily as pretty or peachy as, I was meant to think and believe there's this heaven and this hell. And it's really, where do you go afterwards? And in 92, that was when like older people, mostly guys, were just like, hey, Greg, sit down on the couch. Okay. Yeah, you listen to Poison and Motley Crue? No knock on those bands whatsoever. No knock whatsoever. But you ever listen to Jimi Hendrix, Greg? I'm like, no, I've heard of him, and they were like, sit your ass down on that couch right now. Greg, you ever heard of Pink Floyd, Greg? You ever heard of that? And it was like, just bam, mind completely blown. So when I hear you guys sing, Where Are You, still in 1992, I think that's the most popular thing that people say to me. They're like, nostalgia, Greg. You're always in either 1991 or 92, but that was really the turning point for me when I started to open my mind up to, oh my God, there's so much other music out there that I didn't even really know about, that I'd never even thought. And that is what influenced my songwriting. And that's the year that I started a band, and I started studying how these artists and musicians wrote songs and how to structure them. And I was like, oh, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, build, get people hooked. And so it's really cool to hear how it really started, because I think that has a meaning to a lot of different people. And going back to the nostalgia piece, isn't that many times why we listen to certain bands? We want to listen to new bands and get turned on to new things, but you listen to old bands or bands that you used to listen to as a kid. And you're absolutely right, guys. The bad memories don't necessarily come rushing back. It's the good memories.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel comfortable. And I use the term all the time, like a blanket. Like it's the only thing I can think of when I'm alone at night writing. I'm like, I just feel like a blanket over me, like comforting me that everything's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
What are the odds us having a song called 1992 and you having all of these memories attached.
It was just like you. It was
yeah.
like you guys wrote it for me, and that was really what got me. So I didn't want to just talk about that song, but that is definitely my favorite. The album continues with Twisted Frames, Recreatured, which is a really cool song name, Fade Away, and then closes with the title track, Respite. For your song Fade Away, I read about this in your press kit. Did you guys originally write this song as a heavier, more electrical version and then strip it down for this EP?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
All the songs basically.
Yeah,
Right.
but I guess
yeah.
Fade Away
Okay.
is, I don't remember. I was listening to a certain band. I think it was Teenage Wrist, which I got into a lot lately. And they have this one song that, as a bass player, hooked me in. So the whole song of Fade Away is based on a single bass riff, which repeats through every section of the entire song. Right? It's the same.
Yeah.
It carries. Where we come to that slower part, the bridge section, the bass is intended to carry the whole section along with the drums and just the vocals, drums, and this gnarly bass riff keeping it going. Yeah, so definitely was written for the intention of bass mostly.
Nothing more than losing composure. Left to be someone else. It's a calling to ride in. I realize there's nothing more in between.
And you guys also said I think I read in regards to Fade Away, behind the simple, I'm quoting you guys, behind the simple expression lies a song written for a much heavier and larger soundscape in form of a full band. And the song delicately balances the line between the desire for guitars with a full twist and restrained presentation of history. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, when Respite was released in February, I read it was re-released at the summer concert that I think you mentioned, and that was in Sweden?
Yeah. Traveled just across the border to Sweden. Yeah.
But only with Norwegians, basically.
I think there was one in Sweden.
Yeah.
They lived there. So they invaded his backyard for that one. Yeah.
And have you guys been playing shows lately around Norway and Sweden?
No, that's still the only concert that we've ever done. Because in August last year, after the summer and all of that, we got a drummer, and since then we've been just now. So the songs were written for a band, rearranged to acoustic, and then we did things to the acoustic version that we wanted to bring with us into the band version again. We had to rearrange them again when we got a drummer and started playing these songs with electrical guitars and drums.
Yeah.
So that process has been long, but I think now I feel like we're done with the let's say the creative process and writing the songs for what is going to be our album in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So our next goal now is to bring the bits and pieces songs with us into a band format as well. Alongside.
That will be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of answered my next question, which was like, what are your plans for the future? What's your next move? Which you just answered.
We have so many albums, like we have so many songs lined up.
Yep.
None of them are done, but we have a lot of, so we try to section our songs and our releases. We don't have that many, but the plan is to section things into what fits together. So the songs from Respite and a few other extra songs fit sound-wise together. And then we have some other songs that we have started playing in the rehearsal room and writing demos of that will fit into the next album probably, where we're getting into the post-rock style a bit more. I'm sure it'll be easy to hear that we're leaning that direction on the next release, but the songs themselves are a bit more, it's basically the Respite with some other songs. So put in band form.
Well, you guys,
it'd be fun to show like the contrast of how these songs started as have been broken down and built up again for so many purposes, to like show the contrast and let people compare how these songs work in their expression and their format, how they can convey messages in different settings.
Yeah, and we let ourselves rewrite the songs if needed for the band version. We're not just playing the exact same thing on acoustic guitar and
I like
guitars.
that.
We try to rearrange them. Some songs even have adjusted bridges, stuff like that. Recreature, for instance, have a much longer bridge as a band than acoustically. So we just let the music lead the way, basically.
I'm Greg Potters with the albumreview.net podcast. Do you want to amplify your passion? Well, now you can. Introducing createmypodcast.com. Now there is a place you can go to get help building your own podcasts. If you're a business owner or an entrepreneur and you're taking the leap like I did and starting a podcast, I can help. I will walk you through a step-by-step process on how to launch, publish, and grow your podcast. I can also offer quick, easy tips on the best equipment, software, and tips and tricks that are going to be right for you and your budget. To get started, go to createmypodcast.com or message me directly at gpotters@createmypodcast.com. Let's get started.
Am I supposed to know how it feels to be alive? It seems to be my flaw, just how my brain conceives the world. You were never supposed to go. It seems to be my fault. Leaving me stranded. Leaving me stranded. Leaving me stranded. Leaving me stranded. Am I supposed to know how it feels to be alive? It seems to be my fault, just how my brain conceives the world. You were never supposed to go. It seems to be my fault. Relieved to be alone.
When you're doing
Honestly.
live shows, I think it's personally, I'm more interested in bands that sort of mix their songs up a little bit. I'm not one that wants to go to a show and see the exact same thing every night. I think
that's our plan. that's our plan, honestly.
Yeah. I think that's what a true
yeah.
artist really does. And I'm not just saying that. That's it. There's a certain commercial level that some bands get to where they either they realize or they're told or they just feel like, hey, we've got to do the same thing every night because our fans are coming to the show for that. But whatever, we're not at that point. And this is really the creative process. And let's face it, you get bored if you play it the same way every single night. You want to mix it up and see. When a song that you wrote 10 years ago, you could completely rewrite it in a way today, maybe with the same chords, but a different rhythm, or add in a different speed or something like that. And that's what makes it so, just really so interesting in my opinion.
We have a lot of songs that it's probably going to end up into a meme at some point. We have so many songs that have a bridge or an outro that we just love playing. So on rehearsal, like Recreation, for instance, that's our rule, to play that song at the end of the rehearsal every time.
Nice.
And it's never the same length because we've added an ending section to it, and we just jam that for 5 to 10 minutes. Just keep going. And our plan is we have made a choice to, when we play concerts, which we hope is going to happen at some point. Concert is difficult, getting concerts, and
Sure.
we're busy, we have lives. We can't, it's hard for us to just go all in and just say do everything to get gigs. But we're planning to. I really want to play a concert with this band in its current form sometime this year. But
We take a lot of pride, and we did that with Draug as well, that we spend a lot of time not perfecting. Nothing can be perfect, but we spend a lot of time getting to a certain quality of our performances and how we play things. And that is what sort of paved the way for Draug as a band. We were always considered like a solid band. We were always called up by random people who needed a band on the spots because they knew we were always prepared. They knew what they were going to get. We're bringing it, and we're coming close to that point right now. We're on the edge of leaving. Definitely, it feels really great. These last rehearsals we've had, we come out of the room with a sense of, oh, this is turning into something really solid that we can present to people. Yeah.
We're not going to use backing. As I said, as we mentioned earlier, we love layers. We love different parts. If it were up to me, I would have had 4 different synth things going on and guitars and all that. But we're just saying, if we can't play it, we're not gonna have it. There's not going to be any backing tracks. Our drummer Simon will have click on his ear, and so far that's the only plan. And that means maybe some days songs will be longer because we feel like jamming on a part for 5 minutes extra, or other times we just play it as it is, who knows.
Now, you guys have definitely impressed me with your music and your dedication to your craft. And after switching from a black metal band over to more of a, Hakon, what would you call the style now? You had a word earlier that I didn't write down.
I would say our current, like with the band, you mean?
Yeah.
As a band? Yeah, I would say we're leaning into like post-rock.
Post-rock, okay.
Yeah, maybe eventually probably some post-metal influences. And I will also say we have a lot of like alternative rock, maybe.
Sure.
A lot of inspiration there.
We're not straight up shoegaze post-rock,
right?
But we are definitely more and more inspired by it. So alternative rock with some post-rock influences is probably our current genre.
As I said before, it's melancholy. It makes me feel relaxed, but at the same time, energetic and enthusiastic. It's not music that I would put on to fall asleep per se. It's music that I want to like listen to the words and find out what you guys are talking about. And you guys have given me that experience today where now I know so much more. As we're getting closer to wrapping up, I just want to thank you guys so much, Hakon and Reuben, for taking the time to talk with me today on the albumreview.net podcast. And I want everybody out there who's listening, you can find this band On the Edge of Leaving pretty much on any platforms where you get your music. Guys, I know you're on Spotify. I saw you on Amazon Music. What about Apple and YouTube Music?
I'm pretty sure we're there too. We're on Tidal.
Pretty much all the platforms.
All the platforms. And social media, we're on Bandcamp and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all that.
And how do we find you on social media? Just On the Edge of Leaving, or do you have a certain
On the Edge of Leaving,
name?
Yeah. No one else had taken it, surprisingly enough.
There you go. Yeah. Did you guys, you mentioned this, I think, for bits and pieces, but did you ever get any hard copies pressed of Respite?
No, just our DIY version.
Got it.
We still have a couple left, so
We have a few left, yeah.
we're inclined to shipping it out if people want the remaining copies.
Yeah.
But they'll have to contact us, and we'll have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
I might be
But
one of
that's no
those.
problem.
I might be one of those people. So I might be reaching out to you guys because I collect these things and I also listen to them. I still have a CD player, I still have a cassette deck, and I have two turntables actually. So you'll most likely be hearing from me because I love to collect these things and listen to it that way. I had a bunch of buddies over Friday night and we were just listening to music and they were like, wow, this isn't on your Bluetooth speaker? And I was like, no, this is my home stereo system.
Music exists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Guys, is there anything else that I missed as we wrap up here? Is there anything else that you'd like to add? This has been incredibly exciting for me, but anything else that I might have missed?
I would just like to thank you, honestly, for this opportunity. I genuinely feel happy. Your questions and your it's amazing to meet someone who's taken a dive into our music.
It's kind of new for us.
Yeah, it's kind
no
of
one's never done that to our music before. We really appreciate that.
Yeah,
It's my pleasure, guys. It really doesn't. This is why I love this so much, is because it doesn't feel like a job, and your music definitely moved me in a lot of different ways. And I'm just really excited to be able to get to talk to you on the other side of the planet, really. Although we're not that far apart. It's only like a 7 hour flight.
6 hour, yeah. 7, yeah.
But yeah, but it's my pleasure. I'm just really glad that you reached out and that you took the time to talk with me. And thanks for sharing some of the other pieces as well. The band is On the Edge of Leaving with my friends Hakon and Reuben. Guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And please come back and see us again in the future. I'd love to do the name of the podcast is albumreview.net. That's the website. That's the podcast. I'd love to do an album review with you guys sometime as well to get maybe an album get an album that maybe shaped you guys in one way or another that has that nostalgia for you, or maybe even something new. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to listening to more of your music. And I look forward to getting this out and sharing it with the masses, because I think you guys really do have a talent. And when I dug deeper into your story, it just excited me even more.
We'll be sure to keep you in the loop when it's on the way.
Yeah,
we'll give
if you have a mailing list or anything like that, let me know where I can go to join, or just
that's too far into the promotion.
That's too far into the thanks again, guys, and good luck to you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish you the best.
Close your eyes and focus within. Keep it all at a distance, one breath at a time.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and my interview with Norwegian musicians Hakon and Reuben from the band On the Edge of Leaving. As I previously mentioned, regardless of location on the planet, I am always interested to hear good music. And I appreciate Reuben and Hakon being so open during our interview with their personal lives. And I also appreciate how deep they let me go in talking about the creation of their music. If you haven't yet, take a listen to these guys, On the Edge of Leaving. You can find them on most platforms where you get your music. You can also find them on any social media by typing in On the Edge of Leaving, all one word. Remember, if you're interested in any of the albums or books that I've discussed in this episode or previous episodes, go to albumreview.net and pick up a copy of your own. Listen to all my podcast album reviews at albumreview.net by clicking on the podcast tab. They can also be heard wherever podcasts are available. Please follow the show on your preferred platform so you can get regular updates on new episodes. Also, if you guys would be so kind as to pop a quick review or rate the podcast, that helps move the needle and get the word out there. As always, I do want to hear from you. Please email me your feedback, album review requests, and any questions you might have to gpotters@albumreview.net. That's GPOTTERS at albumreview.net. If you'd like to get regular updates on reviews, interviews, product and music news, go to the homepage and join the mailing list. Visit our LinkedIn and YouTube page, and stay tuned for updates on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can find me at albumreviewnet. Okay, so I brought you guys guests from Singapore, Canada, Sweden, Italy, France, from all corners of the US, and now Norway. Like what you hear? There's more coming. Tune in next time. Have a good day, guys.
Take a trip down by the highway. 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 Take a trip down by